What is it that us artists have in common? Well, we're here to find out. This is Red and Yellow Make Ginger. Right. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Red and Yellow Make Ginger. So I am here with Brad Rumble, aka the Grum Reapur.
Hello there, I am Brad, the Grum Reapur Rumble.
I first knew you from the Little Grumps and that story, and I mean, you still got the very honest backstory of how it started on the website. It's in a slightly different place now, but it's still there.
Yeah.
So did you always have that kind of in mind, to be honest around your journey and what the Grum stood for?
Yeah, so the character, like I sculpted one in 2016 and I had people messaging me basically saying like they wanted to buy one, and I didn't know how to do that. Like I didn't know how to set up a website. Only sold like a few things on Etsy. Didn't just want to make a toy. I wanted it to have a story. I wanted it to have purpose. Like that's what my art's always been about, is to have some deeper meaning behind it, which can help people deal with like mental health struggles. But it was never that obvious. Like the fact that I use UV, like you can see the paintings behind me. The reason I always use UV in paintings is because it creates this. You look at it in one light, but then when you view it from a different perspective, it looks different, which to me was this sort of like neurotypical, neurodivergent shift.
The hidden world.
Yeah.
We try and keep, well, I've got ADHD, so trying to keep it hidden, and then, figuring out, okay, that's why. But I love that with the two different lights.
So with Grum, I wasn't really sure of the story. The face was inspired by a plague doctor mask and a skull, like combined together. So there was this like idea of healing around death, and for me it was like dealing with my own suicidal ideation in particular. Back when I was like 14 to 22, and I wanted to create a story which somehow would help intercept people on a downward spiral, like become a symbol of hope. So I started to work on the story behind it as well. Like even on the website, the story I've got on there so far is like a tiny fraction of the whole story. But trying to sit down and write a story without any creative writing experience is like. So I'm hopefully gonna do a course in that over summer as well.
Amazing, because I was going to say your writing is very in depth and creative, so I'm sure that will help branch out even further to get that going. Yeah.
Well, ideally, I want to turn the story into a comic. The aesthetic is right for it.
You got 2 pages or pilots out, I think, if I remember correctly. You had I don't know if that's public or not, or whether I've just seen a glimpse of it. But
yeah, no, I done one way back when I first started, but I didn't really have the knowledge on how to sort of build it up further. So my Google assistant is talking to you in the other room. I'm like, what are you talking about?
It's not picking up, so you're good. I love his sort of embodied voice from somewhere. We're not getting mad. It's just but you can't hear it this end.
Yeah, I forgot what trailer's going on. Some trail.
But the comic and the creative writing and
So one of my friends, she applied for the Arts Council Develop Your Creative Practice Fund to write a poetry book. So I think I might use the platform I've already got as like a proof of concept to apply for that sort of funding, and then sort of use that time and funds to basically help me get the story written, as well as actually pay an illustrator. Like, because I don't have, like, my brain is like, I'd done a year of illustration at uni first, and then I was like, this isn't for me. I need to do fine art, because it was always like one representation of a big idea rather than a series of small, like for a narrative.
I get that.
I just want to get the story or script written and then give that to one of my friends to illustrate.
With university and having the small business already, doing it kind of in reverse in a way, how has that kind of formed your thinking around Grum and things? Because you had that other word which I can't pronounce yet. the
Doodly bonk.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Which it made me think, extemporary art's difficult to say, but we'll get everyone saying it eventually. Both names.
There's a few different, like, it's all to do with mental health still. Like, Squidoodly bonk is the squirrely line that goes across the page. I used the Fibonacci sequence and my own formula to determine how big the circles were, as well as how far apart they were. So it's a mathematical design that represents order and chaos, which is like having a borderline brain. But the design itself is balanced between the top and the bottom. So if you flip it around, it's perfectly the same as the other way around. And on the bottom, you've got the character, the Squidoodly bonk themselves, which have the little eyes, and they're sort of just bobbing around like, yeah, this is great. So that's like the silly, the more light-hearted side, and then the top side is this like ooze dripping down onto it. But then the two sort of meet in the middle. So there's this balance between the light and the dark. But as well as that, it's the line itself, the way it goes up and down, is a representation of how your emotion, like how my emotions go. So when I'm up, I'm like rapturous and like hail everything. But then it dips back down into the lows. But yeah, uni has definitely. When I first came to university, I didn't really believe. Even when I first set up Grum, I didn't really believe that I could have any success as an artist, because I'd grown up with people telling me there's no money in it, or it's not a real job, all that sort of thing. And then that's why I chose illustration, because like, that seems like a more professional decision.
That's why I chose it originally as well, but I didn't have the courage to switch in the second year like you did.
Yeah. But then it was the tutors I had. Like, one of the first things, one of the early tutors, early on in the course, one of the tutors told me I was quite subversive, because I'd take the brief and I'd bend it as far as I could to fit what I wanted to do rather than what the brief wanted me to do.
Brilliant.
Like, yeah, you're really subversive. I was like, I've heard the word, but I don't quite know what it means. So I checked it out. I was like, yeah, actually, yeah, I am massively subversive. I've always been subversive. So it's like, how can I then harness that? And I sort of made a mark of myself in the illustration studio quite a lot by leaving drawings and paintings on the wall and things like that, which were very satirical and political. I asked about halfway through, I was like, I think I need to go to fine art because this isn't for me. And then they encouraged me to stay on. And then I found out the reason that is because I was getting like really high grades, even in illustration. And obviously that gets the score up. So I was like, actually, at the end of it, I was just like, I now know that I am an artist. And when I first started, I sort of just had this sort of like, I make art, but I'm not an artist. But then it was realizing that, yeah, I am. And it's not just the work you make, it's about like your perception of the world and how you take things in.
Yeah, certainly more how you connect to the artwork rather than creating it. But...
Yeah. And so I switched to fine art, and then I was getting really good grades in that as well. So I was like, oh, I've not been lazy. Like I was always labeled lazy because obviously with depression, you don't have much motivation to do things. But the one thing I've always had motivation to do is to just make stuff. Like all the time making stuff. And it's through starting Grum where I was given that confidence to first post up my work online, which I'd never really done before, and then have that support network of people that were pushing me to supporting me through it. Like, oh, we like your work, we like what you're doing. And yeah, and that's continued to spur me on through university. Even when it comes to like experimenting with different things like the core device and the Neo Enso, like it's almost like I'll create a particular motif and then I'll just work on that repeatedly until it doesn't even reach an end. It just changes and alters as it goes on.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way. I found I stopped thinking about ideas and just have themes and things.
Yeah.
And then every so often, when I want to change the theme, I'm just in that mode of what idea can I have? What is it? And then that's quite painful. Trying to push the idea, but to have a theme and to work at it creates more ideas. And
and also it also like feeds what you read, and like what I read often inspires an idea as well.
I'd like to get back to the reading because you did a lot of reading around the borderline personality disorder. So I don't know if you want to delve more into that, or whether whether you're happy to talk about that condition and how it is now, and how the reading has helped inform some of. You talk about it in your reels and things.
So I was diagnosed with it when I was 19, which is now 15 years ago. Bloody 15 years. But at the time, nobody was talking about mental health. So me hearing that diagnosis of borderline personality disorder or emotionally unstable personality disorder, which terrifies people. So that's why most borderlines will say it's borderline personality disorder, or just shorten it to BPD. It's basically just like, it's an issue with regulating your emotions. So if you see a really nice flower, it might make you feel so happy that you end up crying. Or if you wake up and you feel a bit crap, it might just like really, you just spend all day in bed. But it is up and down constantly, and before you've had enough of the roller coaster to know, when you're in the pits of it, you're like, this is just me forever. Like, so when you have those highs, you're like, oh, finally I'm out of it, I've broken free. But then it goes back down into it, and enough of the roller coaster, and you know that you're not going to be stuck in it. So if you're happy, you then, like with me in particular, I feel more present in the moment to just enjoy that for what it is and not worry too much about the crash. As well as the inverse is, if I'm having a bad day, rather than label it as depression, it's just me having a bad day. And that was one of the biggest realizations I had around it, was realizing that depression and our identities can go hand in hand. So as if you get diagnosed with a condition such as depression, and you've lived with it for so long, you might just think, I am Brad, I am depressed, and then it becomes part of your identity, which is then detrimental, because you might just be sad. Like that's what I realized with me. Like, it's existential dread. Like, I'd feel bad, and then I'd go into this existential dread of like, everything's pointless, yada yada yada. Then that would compound it. Whereas I had this like deep it was like an internal conversation with myself, where it's like, you're not depressed, right? I was like, the hell are you talking about? I've been depressed since I can remember. It's like, no, because you've identified with it for so long, if you have a bad day, it becomes depression. So it's like a clinical permanent thing that you can't shift. And that realization, I had that in 2019, February 16th, 2019, I had that realization, and I haven't been depressed since. Like, there's been plenty of stuff to like try and make me depressed, just haven't been, because I realized it didn't have to be a permanent state.
I mean, that's great, because not long after that, we all had something to be worried about. So I could have quite easily have sent us all into depression. But the fact that we hold on to that, and I mean, I've had depression myself, so I've had it in the past. So
something interesting happened during lockdown, where like I'd always had friends around me, I'd always had people that I could sort of like talk to and like party with as well, just to let off some steam. And then all of a sudden I was forced into complete isolation. Like, I lived with two other people, two other students from Vietnam, and they just went back to Vietnam before the pandemic really took hold, because otherwise they'd be stuck here. So I had the run of a 3-bed house completely to myself for, well, until I moved again 7 or 8 months later after that. And being on your own like that is really testing. But what it forced me to look at was how dependent I had been on other people to confirm my own self-worth. And like, even that came through with like notions of the ego. With like, when I first started Grum, there was this sort of recognizing that my particular neurosis is not feeling loved, by posting up vulnerable stuff online, and then having that impact then fed back to me. It was this sort of like unconscious search for feeling loved. And as soon as I had that realization, I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit weird. So that's sort of when I stopped posting as many videos, because I was posting videos like every other day before. And then having that realization, I was like, oh, I need to take a step back from this and really figure out why I'm doing this beyond the ego self.
It's more the intention. It's not the fact that you're being vulnerable or putting the videos out, but it is figuring out what the motivation and the intention is. So that's interesting, because those videos, despite that, did help a lot of people. And when you take a step back again, hang on, what's my actual reasons for doing this?
Because like, I like the fact it helped people, but realizing that a deep it's almost like a deep desire to help people. Also, is a trauma response.
Yeah.
It's like if I can help people, then I can heal my own trauma that is causing me to need healing myself.
That's interesting.
Now I've come back to it. It's like more genuine. It was genuine before, but it was always driven by that like past trauma of not feeling loved. Whereas now it's an active decision, and it's one where I choose like what energy to spend in it. Whereas before it was almost like people could just take it from me, and I'd felt obliged to give it to them.
So you just took a little bit of time to analyze what it was about, and then go back into it with a new mindset and new renewed, reasoned. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that, I mean, I hadn't. Us watching the videos wouldn't have even known, but then it's good to have that. I mean, even with my YouTube videos, the art, and this podcast, I have to think, why am I doing this? But actually, I love the community. I love talking, but I love meeting people. But you could arguably say, I think it's been successful. I only talk to you if I'm recording, but that's not the case. But yeah, it's given me a reason, to talk to people and connect with people. But you do have to start thinking about what your actual intentions are with these things. And
like I like these sorts of conversations, because it's not like what's happening is it wasn't just me in the Grum Club or online, it was me in my personal day-to-day as well. Like people, I don't know what it's been my entire life, but I'll just walk down the street, and then someone would approach me and just unload their life story on me. I have no idea where the hell that come from. But it's happened time and time again. Like I could go out now, walk down the street, walk through town, and it will happen to me at least once.
Yeah, my mum tends to get that a lot. We just go, "What's going on?" She's talking, and she go, "Yeah, his life story." We call it the blue flashing light in my family. Like just a beacon of like mosquitoes to a flame sort of thing. But it's strange how that happens. Like it's to a point, it's normal, but then it goes a step further, and you hear the entire story. And so yeah, we kind of got used to it, but it's. I think as you learn about this blue light, you put your barrier up a bit more, and you boundaries and.
Yeah, that's it. I didn't have any boundaries, but I've learned to set those boundaries after just a bad relationship with someone that was taking all that energy. Then that forced me to realize that I was just willingly or unconsciously giving it away constantly. The thing is, I am interested in people's stories. It's just like I've got to be in the right frame of mind or right place, and it's got to be the right setting. But when you spend that energy like without realizing you're spending that energy like every day for years, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. So I was just tired all the time, and that's what I think. It's just like I've taken a step back from that a lot more, which is why I want to work on the story, because then it's like I can put all of that, like I don't know, like that flashing blue light as you call it, to me it always seemed like some kind of magic. Like not I'm massive, like wasn't spiritual, now I'm spiritual after having an awakening moment. But it just seemed like a gift somehow that I hadn't learned how to harness. It's like I was Cyclops and just blasting people with compassion and kindness all the time. That's too much.
Before the glasses.
That's why I wear the red glasses all the time.
Yeah. I was half expecting the red glasses today, actually, but yeah, they're very cool.
I started wearing them because I was getting eye strain a lot. Turns out I need actual glasses, hence the actual glasses now.
Yeah, I wear glasses when I'm not at computers, so short-sighted it's fine, but yeah, glasses the rest of the time. So sometimes in vlogs, I've been driving, I've got glasses on. Continuity is gone now. But, so with the Grums, how do you teach yourself the sculpture and the molds and things with the silicone? Did that just come from watching YouTube, or was that pre-YouTube, or how did that come about?
I always was interested in art toys.
Mm-hmm.
I never really had the money to afford them, so I wanted to make one that I could sculpt all of the different variations that I wanted to myself. just mold making, and then it just turns out I got into mold making. The first Grum I actually sculpted was about 3 millimeters thick all the way around
All
the
right.
one I use now. But when I made the mold of it, there was several layers of varnish on it, which the silicon reacted with and messed with. So then I had to take that out, sand it down, and then I lost about 3 mil around the entire thing to what is now the master molds, I suppose. But yeah, just there's an artist called Matt Jones, goes by Lunatic. He's known by his Lunatic in a cup, which is like a little rabbit. It's sat in a teacup, and he had a book called Plastic Surgery. I bought that and sculpted and used my first sculpt to make the mold out of. And the original face was completely different to what it is now. It had about 5-6 different teeth, and then this one just came to me, and I was like, I'm going to do that, like, to the point now where I have it like
Go say got the Grum tattoo.
yeah. Yeah, I just started making them then, and I've learned loads of different techniques since, like airbrushing. I was always spray painting them before because I just like spray paint. I like the smell. I like the going outside. There's like a whole culture around spray painting, and it's not all just like graffiti art either. There are like graphics designers that use spray paint that I'm a big fan of as well. But yeah, everything's just been self-taught up until even uni, because fine art is so self-driven. Like you really have to just determine what you want to make yourself, then they've got the facilities there to then practice that. And part of me wants to go into like woodworking. I'm going to try to I'm on the board for the 3D workshop for the expansion, because they've got about 3 million to spend on the expansion at the uni. But part of the expansion is they want to open up a post-grad technician's job. So I'm kind of there like, yeah, we need to approve that job once it's approved, because I've spent I'm obsessed with the academic setting. Like I really like it. So I am known in the university by everyone all the way up to the chancellor now, because I stick my nose in everywhere, anywhere I can.
Yeah, it's good to network and get to know people, and be part of that kind of expansion. And yeah,
I didn't think I could do that. I thought I was like a really shy introvert, but it just turns out I'm extroverted when it comes to what I care about.
Yeah.
If somebody tries to talk to me about football,
I'm the same.
I'll just walk away. I'm like, I can't do this. Like,
yeah, I find them another football buddy, and then they chat and they walk away.
If it's art, or if it's ideas, if it's philosophy, sociology, anthropology, these sorts of things, they're the subjects that keep me gripped, and fine art covers that sort of thing, so it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I would go on to fine art when I was in illustration, but I was like, oh, I've almost finished the degree now, and I know I had made friends and all that sort of stuff, but part of me wants to go and do a master's, but then I got to do all the essays again. So, so I can't afford it. But yeah, it sounds like it's really helped those bigger ideas and connect it to artwork, which is sometimes I think has my art got a message, whereas yours really has, and you really weave it into your artwork.
Yeah.
Do you think that with the fine art, that's changed the way that the Grums is working? Because you've been doing a lot more spray paint and paintings. I don't know if recently, but certainly within the first year of that, you were a reasonable amount.
We introduced 5 new degrees and a diploma course, which exists between years 2 and 3 of fine art, or any other course. Anyone can do it in creative computing. So since early October, I have been just coding like C#, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, P5.js as well. And my brain hurts so much from doing it, but I like it. I really like doing it, because there's something about like rewriting code, like working through it all as you would a painting, and figure out the bits that are wrong, and then making something visual happen on a computer just through code, because that matches like the maths that I use a lot of maths in a lot of the design work that I do. Like the alien I've done behind me, that's using again Fibonacci sequence to determine the size of circles, and then using different formulas to determine the distance between circles, and then it all comes together as like an image. So there is that sort of element to it, but I sort of fell away from the physical making side of things, like sculpting and painting, until about 4 weeks ago, when I decided to get a 4 foot by 4 foot panel made so I can just start painting that.
Brilliant.
It'll be the biggest painting I've worked on, but it's trying to replicate my core device design, which are those like super geometric shape, like 3D ones that I make.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Is that off the faces though, with the wire that you've done, or is that the?
No, that's the Neo Enso. The Neo Enso is the Hakuin Enso is the art of drawing a circle, which embodies your entire self in the moment, because every single time you draw a new one, it will always have variables, even though it's still the same thing. It's still a circle. It will always be different because of the variables of the brush stroke and how much ink and all that sort of thing, or the size you do it. Whereas the Neo Enso is the same technique, but rather than drawing a circle, it's drawing the same face over and over and over again with variations each and every single time.
Okay.
So it's to link our current experience, like our being, with our identity, because they are interlinked now. Like if you think, oh, I am kind and compassionate, that's a good thing, really. But it then forms part of your identity. And a lot of like things nowadays is us sticking to identity. The way I suspended that between the like the Japanese gateways. Yes. The reason it's suspended between that is because those represent moving from the like material world into the spiritual world. And I found myself at the time sort of stuck between the two. So there was this motif of myself tied up with shibari, which is like to just tie it in place and locked in between the two realms. So I'm sort of half spiritual, half scientific, and just not clinging to too much belief, as opposed to falling fully into one like camp or the other.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think I've briefly seen them, but I've not really delved right into that rabbit hole yet. But now you've explained the meaning, I will be.
It's really hard to capture the meaning behind art online now, because
it really is. Yeah, you don't get to really stand before it and analyze it. You just sort of scrolled within a few seconds.
The psychological imperative of people using social media, for instance, is novelty. And in the Edmund Burke's treatise on the philosophy in sublime in the art, which was written in 1726, didn't realize what he was writing at the time, but it's essentially a psychological breakdown of why people like art and creative things. And the first thing, the most base thing, is novelty. This is why you see really successful artists using images of like Disney characters in their work, and all of a sudden they're getting notoriety for it, because they're going off of a pre-established novel item, which is a cartoon character, to basically boost their own prestige. Whereas if you introduce a new character, people have to then understand what the character is, their motives, their meanings, all of that sort of thing, before they can really get into it. And that's just like the first stage. When you go beyond the novelty, you've then got ideas of magnitude. So the bigger a piece of art is, the more awe-inspiring and sublime it is, as well as the verticality of a piece. Like if it's horizontal, because we're so prone to looking left to right, you can see further than a skyscraper is tall on the horizontal. But if you flip what you can see on the horizontal and you make it vertical, all of a sudden you're looking up at something which is awe-inspiring, because you don't typically look up to see things. So then that's another element of what defines the sublime. And the sublime is the idea of what makes good art, essentially.
Yeah, I'm going to have to really delve into all this, because it's stuff that you kind of think of in your like subconscious, but don't really ever get a chance to delve into it. So,
yeah,
I mean that's why I got you on the podcast. I knew there'd be some philosophical things. And it's made me wonder, with putting your artwork and in the Grums on social media, and even on the website, where it's gone from a 3D object to a 2D object because of the nature of photography.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that really changes the way people view them, and you know, how do you approach the social media kind of promotion? Well, putting your work out there, sort of.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to use social media and be so open and vulnerable on social media is because I saw social media as a big problem with people being open and being vulnerable. So I wanted to be subversive. And that was why when the tutor told me that I was subversive, I was like, really looked into it. I was like, actually, yeah, I am. And there's things that I want to make. Like I want to make a Fuck the Zuck t-shirt, but you can't exactly market that on Facebook. and I want to I want to make another t-shirt which is "Eat Your Bezos," which is basically going to be Jeff Bezos' head as a cereal bowl, and you're just like gobbling up out of his brain. I wanted to use social media to subvert the nature of mental health problems, and like when I first started, I basically would trawl hashtags of suicide, of depression, and then find people that were clearly looking for someone to reach out and help them, and then I'd reach out and help them. Like that's how I started. But I was spending 10 hours a day doing that, and that was just I couldn't. It was only ever based off my own experience. So then I got like suicide prevention training to help with that sort of thing. But that's what then led to the Grum Reapur Club. And I invited people that I knew who had been through it because they were drawn to the story as well. And then they were there to sort of help people that were going through their own struggles. But yeah, trying to take a 3D object and depict what it's like on social media is quite hard, because when people come to like conventions or stuff, they can pick it up and like they'll feel it, and then because people think it's 3D printed, it's not. I sculpted the original by hand, which is why all of the cloak bits are perfectly fit to the fingers of my own hand. And it feels quite like it's just very ergonomic. It's very tactile, but you can't really depict that unless somebody can hold the actual object itself.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, it's the same with even with paintings when they've got really thick paint on them. You can't really gauge that unless you're actually there, stood at it from the side, even, or with the grums holding them and seeing how it feels, or yeah.
Or even like some of the paintings I do with the Neo Enso was formed as these characters called the Demise, which is D_M dot Euro dollar, sorry, Euro yen Euro dollar. So it's spelled out demise, but it had this idea of messaging, scams, and money sort of thing all rolled into one. But I've got one of those that I've done where I wanted to make it frequency dependent, so different wavelengths of light. The painting itself is just on a little board about this big, and on the top it says "Hold me," on the bottom it says "Shake me." Because if you look at it under a certain light and you start to shake it, the green and red hits your eye at a different speed. So it looks as though the eyes start floating off of the painting itself.
That's cool.
But nobody wants to grab it and touch it. Oh, it's a piece of art. I don't want to like move it about. I'm like, it's there deliberately so you can do that with it. And as soon as they do it, like, this is actually really cool. I like that.
There needs to be more hands-on art, and I mean, it particularly got me thinking when those were talking about those who are blind and how they can experience artwork, and whether I should start putting like braille into my artwork even, or I mean, you do start worrying about but fingers and grease, but no, you want people to experience it. You want people to
well, one of my friends, Reese Chambers, he is an incredible artist, like illustrator, and his work, like he'd sit down and do a drawing and it was impeccable every single time. He came to university, done animation, and then a short time after that he actually lost his eyesight, which crushed my soul because I liked his work so much, but also crushed his soul.
Yeah, it's the worst fear of every artist to lose that vision.
Yeah,
but there are a lot of blind artists out there as well.
So it led me to the idea of like, how do you create a sculpture that is so tactile that it's interesting to someone with impaired vision, but not to people with vision? Like, I wanted it to not look good to people, so they didn't want to even go near it.
That's cool.
Also making it really enjoyable for people who can't enjoy visuals. So it's specifically for blind people rather than a cross section of blind people and non-blind people.
I hadn't even thought about doing that even. And it's kind of like the UV in a way. It's like a hidden image within it that either hypersensitivity in their hands or are willing to touch the object, we'll find out. So I
don't like the idea that art is some sort of like hands off, super precious. Like, sure, if it's like a Rembrandt or it's like centuries old, then fair enough. But you can, like, the Dada movement made plenty of interactive art, and I want to make interactive art, but it's limited by material costs. So I have plans for writing things in the future where I'll take over high street shops and make it more of an experience. But that's maybe 5-10 years from now. And there's already companies that are proving how impactful immersive art is, not just virtual, but fully immersive.
Yes.
In America, you've got Meow Wolf and Omega Mart.
Heard
They
the names
are
before, but I'm trying to think of
they are playgrounds for people on psychedelics. Well, that's how they was originally attended. This group of artists, they found a disused bowling alley. And then they wrote to George R. R. Martin, the writer of Game of Thrones, for $500,000 in funding, and they got it. And they I think they got 300 different artists to come in and contribute work to this space. Yeah, and then they opened, and they was only expecting people on like mushrooms or ketamine and acid and that sort of thing to come along to it, and then it was just drawing ordinary people, like it was like soccer mums and people like that.
Yeah, have to have the experience without having to do those things, because I mean, I never did psychedelics, but I had a history of that, and then I'm in recovery, so I was like, actually, you can still enjoy the visual, you can still enjoy those things, and play with the senses and things. And so that's interesting that the ordinary people came in, because they can now experience the trip without having to go through it.
It's so outlandish as well. Like it's really out there. And they opened up their first one, and then it was so successful they opened up another one, and then those two combined were that successful that they opened up a third one, and I think they're just opening their 6th venue. That's in America. And then over here we didn't have anything like that until Wake the Tiger. Now Wake the Tiger is a similar thing.
That's near me. I need to go.
Have you been?
I haven't. I was like toying with the idea: is it actually any good, or is it going to be this naive, cliche thing? But I've had so much good feedback from those who have been. I don't know how long it's going to be around for, but at some point I need to actually go, and I don't know if you can take photos, but it'd be a good vlog if I can.
Yeah, I think you can take photos. I think loads of these places, like I listened to a podcast with the guy who started up the original Meow Wolf, and he was saying that this was just after the pandemic. So he was saying that the high streets are dead because of online shopping. That's fair enough, but what's really going to get people out of their houses is something that you get to experience, like something that's actually an experience. So if your pub is dying, make a ballsy step and turn it into like a zombie themed pub, or a pub, or turn it into like a retro wave pub, and like really style it out, really theme it, and you will get people through the doors. But at the moment, a pub is just a pub, and our generation coming up just aren't interested in that, because why would they be? Then you can experience grand things like Wake the Tiger. Like Wake the Tiger, they have an adults only thing weekend coming up on the 24th to the 29th of April. So I think you can like take beer and stuff like that, and they put on like music, so it turns into like a little bit of a crazy rave. But it looks really good. I really want to go at some point as well. But I think that'll be the first one, but then there'll be more of them opening up in time.
Well, if you're ever down this way for Wake the Tiger, let me know, because
I will do, man. Like I want to. It's just like the sullen years of being at university, like having no bloody money and just like figuring stuff out at the moment.
Well, yeah, being an artist, living costs going up.
Yeah, like it's not just so art sales are one of the first things to go during a recession. That's essentially what it is. It is a recession. They just call it a cost of living crisis because people are a bit politically averse to calling things a recession, or the powers that be don't like calling it recession, because basically if your government causes a recession, you're out next time around, which fingers crossed they are. Because they're terrible for mental health. Yeah, art is one of the first things to go. So art sales of like commissions and things like that are going to be one of the first things to drop. But there's also Arts Council and public funding out there for doing community-based work as well, which is more, you get more funding for that during times of recession because people aren't able to afford like anything really. So if you host an art workshop and it's free for people to attend and you've got all the supplies there, then people are more likely to come and attend. And you don't need, I always thought if for us to do anything like Arts Council funded, I'd have to have like hundreds of people through the door, and you can do it for like 5-6 people, like because you're able to have a higher impact on that small amount of people than a smaller impact on a larger amount of people.
I think the whole recession and having less money has affected some people more than others, because I was told, oh, January is a very slow month, and et cetera. But in the last week of the show in January is when I sold one of my big paintings for a reasonable amount of money. And yeah, different people get affected differently in this. Yes, the average person couldn't have bought it, but then I was very surprised when someone who's into property development and stuff fell in love with it and thought it'd be good for properties. And it's like we had a bit of back and forth. It was like, yeah, for that much I'll take it. It's like, yeah, cool.
nice.
And so yeah, that's gone to a good home now. And I had no idea it was sell in the end of January, where everyone's recovering from Christmas. The agent price is about to go up in the next 3 months, and I had no idea that I would sell something of that kind of size and impact. But so it depends on who comes through the door in that sense. But then again, I haven't sold anything since then. But
there seems to be so all of my small end sales have dropped off, like 1 gram, 1 or 2 grams, which it typically equals about 50 quid. The average spend of art online is 56 quid, like across the board. That goes from like trinkets for like 2-3 quid all the way up to like £1,000 painting. But nobody shops for £1,000 painting online. It's either going to be in a gallery space or through knowing the artist themselves or through multitude of competitions and things like that. But what's happened with my sales is people are now spending 150 quid plus. So I'll get less sales, but more money spent on those sales that do come through. It's like, okay, then that's still balancing out. But considering when I first started, I only wanted to sell I only thought I'd sell like 1 a month. Then in that first year, I sold like 300, 400 of them. So I was like, oh, okay, what the hell? This is bloody great. And so far, I've sold about 1,000 of them, all worldwide. It's bloody great.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't even imagine that. I just sell a few prints here and there, so original now and again, have many months of lull, and get back into the momentum again.
It's online. It's basically digital marketing. Like I ran the same ad for £1 a day for.
Okay, so you do the paid advertising, and
I used to.
But in a very strategic way.
I used to, when I first started, I did £1 a day. I got my click-through rate down to half a penny per click, which I've spoken to people who are in marketing, and they're like, that's unheard of. I think it's just because it's like candid ad of just like, I'm a small-time artist. I'm not like some big corporation just trying to make a living. This is what I'm about. This is what I represent. And yeah, that sort of, because it was honest. And you don't get that in advertising. You don't really get honesty ever in advertising. It's like, you should eat this and you should drink this because it will have this nonsense effect. Like adverts for perfume are a prime example of the absurdity of advertisement anyway. But if it's like that, so that was when I first started. Like I advertised because I had a mentor who advised me to advertise because that's how you get your work in front of people. And then I ran another ad last year, June, July time, and typically you need to leave an ad running for at least a week for it to figure out who your market is, right? And something's gone wrong at Facebook because I targeted America, Canada, Spain, UK, and Germany because that's where most of my sales have come from, and I was getting likes from India, Sri Lanka, like predominantly likes and engagement from Sri Lanka, India, Mexico, places where I wasn't advertising. So I was just like, well, I'm paying for this and you're not targeting the weirdos like myself. Like that's who I put in as my audience. I'll just put in like, into sci-fi, maybe a bit too much into sci-fi, into metal music, also into psytrance music because I do like psychedelic stuff as well. And then I advertised and it just wasn't reaching. So I was like, well, this is a waste of money now. And that's why I think there's now more advertising on Facebook and Instagram because they've screwed themselves up somewhere, like massively so. And they need to try and bring back that revenue to show to their shareholders they're still a profitable company, and they're not. And for all of their financial wisdom, it seems like they're idiots because they haven't figured out why they're losing money. And the reason they're losing money is because they're trying to get more.
If you're paying for an advert, you want them to do what you've paid for.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like getting a bike with square wheels. It's like, oh, I've got the bike, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, or waiting for the bike and it's in some other country. It's like, but I put my address in. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm contemplating whether to like I've got a small part-time job coming up soon, and I might start running some ads over the summer just to see how that goes with the new Grum. So I've got a new Grum that I'm sculpting at the moment.
Is that public knowledge? Can we show that on the? I mean, this won't be for a few weeks, but
so this is the body for it.
Oh, so it's taller.
Yeah, a lot taller. So compared next to an original Grum.
Oh wow, yeah.
Top half of the body. This one's got shorts as well. It's got little shorts there.
Which almost like the face as well.
So the face is so this is the face here. So it's gonna.
Oh yeah, I saw you shared that recently. Yeah, yeah, that's different.
So I want it to have a lot more interchangeable parts. That's why there's this hole on the front. So this will have like a little rod that you can then just put it in, and then if you wanted to get a different face, rather than having to buy a whole new Grum, you can exchange the face for a different one. But also I'm going to have 3 types of faces. So one is that one, which is going to be the original face. One's going to be completely blank for toy customizers, so they can then do their own paint job, paint it however they want. And then there's a third one which will have basically just holes in the eyes, like drilled holes, so you can so you can pop in different like eyes that I'm going to sculpt as well.
That's gonna be cool.
So there'll be like swirly ones, there'll be like realistic looking ones, crosses, buttons, all that sort of thing, but you can swap them out. And then he's also going to have a t-shirt on, so like you can put your own sticker on, or you can put your own thing on as like a slogan for his t-shirt. The shorts are going to be like boxer shorts, so it's like stood around in just his underwear. This one's also got arms. I don't know if you saw the.
I didn't see the arms. No.
So
saw where the arms would go, but I haven't seen the arms yet.
So this is like just one of the rudimentary arms at the moment. Don't know if you can see the details. I realise I'm sat in the sun.
Yeah, the light is playing.
The light is playing nightmares with it. But the joints on these are sculpted around like what an actual skeleton does, like on the elbows.
Oh yeah.
So I've not seen that in any toys before. And then the hands are kind of like the old Mickey Mouse inspired.
I'll get you send some photos over so I can just have that flash up on screen without the light.
Yeah, I'll do that. That makes more sense actually. And today
your bit of editing there, I can add that.
And today I'm going to be sculpting. So I want him to have a pair of high top shoes, and I want him to have a pair of boots. And the arms themselves, they're going to have like, have you heard of BJDs, ball joint dolls?
No.
They typically have like a bit of elastic that runs through each of the limbs that you tie up at the end, so it pulls it all in together, but it still makes it maneuverable.
Okay.
These arms have that, even though they're tiny for me to do that. Like I experimented yesterday and it worked way well better than I thought it was going to do. So yeah, this one is a lot higher spec than previous Grums that I've made, and I also want to do like different masks for him as well, which will clip on to the original face. But yeah, the idea is to have loads of interchangeable parts and
fully customizable. And
this thing is probably going to be, it's probably going to be about 10 to 12 inches tall when it's done.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it looks like around 6 or 7 at the moment, but then when he's got his legs and things on, and
I've been working on this one for ages.
Yeah, it must take quite a while in this sort of prototype and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. Then when you got the master copy, it's easier.
I've also got an actual giant Grum.
Yeah, I saw that. Is that going to become a regular thing, or is it just be like a one-off of?
I have no idea yet.
Because I mean, you could make it. Not to give you any ideas, but it could be like a garden sculpture, couldn't it? If you made it super big, but then again, actually, we had that conversation on Instagram, and you say, material cost is what stops that from happening, and you'd have pre-orders for that, I guess, really, for that to start.
Yeah,
look as well.
Probably. There's some sculpts I've got which they're fine art sculpts, to be quite honest with you. Like I've got a rat trap, which is a gold bar.
Okay.
It's one of my favourite sculpts I've ever done, but I just don't know when, like, whether to like launch it under Grum or launch it under me. But that's both the same thing, which is why I've shifted things to Rumble Art as opposed to Grum Reaper constantly. Because I shared that to the guys at the Toy Chronicle, and they went mental for it. And they're like, "Can we share this now? I want to share this now." It's like, hold up, I've got to do the boxes and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm one of these artists
that trying to picture it.
I've not posted anything online about it. It's bloody great, and like I searched for it, realized nobody had done it yet, and I went, "How the fuck has nobody done this?" To me, it seemed like such a derivative and basic idea that somebody should have done it, and nobody had done it. So I was like, "All right, I'm going to do that." I think I'll release that after I've done hand in for this year's worth of work. I'm the sort of artist, like, I'll come up with an idea, then I'll work on it, make it, and then but as soon as I finish it, it's on to something new. Like, it's the next idea.
Yeah,
because that's the process I like the most. I don't like, obviously I like selling stuff because it means I can make more stuff, but that's the only real reason I like selling stuff, is so I can make more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the only real reason I want to sell stuff at the moment is just because, look at it, it's everywhere. I mean, it's just a very small percentage, and they've got all that stacked up, stuff in the hallway, stuff, you know, it's
so I think
it's the room as well as the money.
I'm quite fortunate that I've got like a friend who is quite well off, and he likes my work a lot, so he'll buy it. Like, as soon as he sees one painting, he's just like, "I want that." I'm like, "Cool, what do you want to pay me for it?" And he's never mugged me off, because that's how I'll try to operate. Like, if I've got loads of work that I just has been set around, I'm like, "What do you want to pay me for it?" And then if they lowball me, then I'm like, "Don't insult me, come on."
Yeah.
Then I don't sell it. But if they offer me something reasonable, then I'm surprised sometimes. Sometimes I'll want to sell something for like 150 quid, and then somebody offers me like 500 quid. So I'm like, okay, you can have it for that. Yeah.
Don't know if you want to touch on pricing, because sometimes when I've sold something for starting to sell stuff for more money now, and then it's going, well, these ones have just been sitting around. Maybe if I'm in a bargain bucket of like 10, 20 pounds, is that going to devalue all the other stuff I've done? Because there's stuff from 2007, which obviously I hope that my skills have got better since then, but it's stuff is just lying around.
You know, like, for me, it's about having someone appreciate that work, because then that adds value to it anyway. Because for you, it's you're making constant work. And it's not about the value of the work, it's just about you making the work because you enjoy doing it. So I've sold, like, I've had one painting on my website which I had up for 200, I think it was. And it was just a skull study in oil paints. Like, I'd never done oil before, and I thought, I'll try this out. Blew myself away. I was like, oh, I can actually paint, like legit paint. And then we sort of had a street party last year, and I just put loads of my paintings outside. Wasn't really planning on selling them, just more of a sort of like a street gallery sort of thing. And someone came along, like a student, and her jaw dropped at it. She was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." She's like, "Oh, how much is it?" And I was like, "Well, on my website it's 200 quid." And she's like, "Oh, I really want it, but I can't afford that." I was like, "What can you afford?" She's like, "Oh, I don't know, like 20 quid." And I was like, "Go on in." She was like, "What?" It's like, yeah, do it for 20 quid. You can have it for 20 quid. Because for me, like, the process is the bit that I enjoy doing the most. It doesn't matter too much about the outcome. To make someone happy with a painting that I had fun doing for 20 quid, I was absolutely fine with that. But then there's other paintings, like this alien behind me. I've spent a lot longer on that. There's no way I'd let that go for 20 quid. I was originally, like, some of my friends was like, "Oh, we want some of your artwork for our walls." I'm like, "Oh, you can have the alien painting when I'm done." And it's turned out better than I thought. So now it's like, no, you can't have that, because I'm sure someone will offer me a nice price for it.
It's a difficult game, because if someone really likes it, you allow a bit of a discount if they really like it, but they can give you this much. But then you're hoping they're not just doing that because they want a bargain, and you get a feel for it. You really get a feel for how people,
by asking like how much someone's happy to pay for it. Like, if they're not like massive collectors of art, they normally go a bit higher anyway, because they value something. Then if they're going to spend it on a painting that they're going to cherish, they'll normally spend a bit more on it. Or if somebody thinks it's novel, they're not going to give you a large amount of money for it. Whereas if it's something they look at and their jaw drops, it's just like, okay, they're gonna give me a higher price. But when it comes to pricing, I don't really have a strict, like, pricing. Like, some of my paintings I've done for me, and I'll price it at, like, I don't want to sell this price. So then if somebody does offer me something for it, I'm like, sweet, I'll take that. But most of the time it has been like, pay me what you would like to pay, and it's normally been higher than I would have estimated it anyway.
Yeah, it balances out then.
Yeah.
The idea of someone enjoying your painting is more. I mean, we have to eat, we have to pay our rent, etc. But it's just the idea of someone actually enjoying the painting is more valuable in that sense, even though we need money in this world, and it's I would rather we didn't. But
I've had some like, I'm realizing through university that I want to go into either being a tutor or a technician anyway. Whether that's a technician working in theatre or working at uni, because I like helping people. Being a tutor or being a technician is one of the best ways to help people, and they're quite well-paying jobs.
Yeah, and allow the art to really, be its own thing.
Yeah, and I think within fine art especially, like none of the tutors know anything about NFTs. None of them know anything about digital art, really. They don't know anything about like gaming as art as well, or immersive experiences. So it's just like, well, you need someone now to be on that course to do that. And everything that I'm doing is shaping me up towards being that sort of tutor through some divine influence, I think.
Because you've been doing a lot of automated, is that the right word? Reality where
augmented reality, yeah.
Because is that what's going to be next for Grum, or rather than that, though, what is next for Grum? Is that the digital age coming in, or?
I think it's just to do with, there's elements of like sustainability there. Like to build an immersive experience, you need to spend a lot on materials, right? Whereas to build a VR experience that doesn't require goggles, doesn't need that bigger setup. You just need projectors and some sensors. Like what I want to try and do in my third year is an immersive room. So you walk into it and the room will react to your presence. So if you move towards a wall, the player in the game will move in that direction. And if you turn around and walk in the opposite direction, the whole environment will turn with you.
Ooh.
Yeah. Which is doable. Like that's doable with some sensors and projectors. Like I already know how to do projection mapping. Going to be building a VR experience over the next 7 weeks for my diploma, which again is all linked in with mental health. It's going to be a choice of a light world or a dark world, and each one will have different interactions, which will then build like a mandala in the sky as you pick fruits from a tree. A bit ambitious, but I like ambition.
No, I really want to get more into the immersive spaces, not necessarily with VR, but just it being a real experience rather than just looking at a painting, which is arguably an experience, but I want to create a new one, something a bit different. So hearing about all your VR stuff might help me think about more of the traditional stuff and how I can make the physical immersive as well. So
there are elements of game design which can be implemented in immersive experience design, like intrigue and narrative and things like that. And speaking to a lot of people in the generation to come, they don't want to sit and look at a painting. They want they want it to be gamified. They want to have some kind of interaction. They want to be involved in the narrative of the story. Yeah, because we have become incredibly individualistic. You can use that individualistic desire or conditioning to basically feed more of a community-driven thing as well, which is one of the things I want to do. Like with Grum, it is about people seeing that there are other weirdos out there like ourselves, and they can connect with them and not feel judged.
Yeah,
like that's ultimately what I set out to do, is to shine a light on the outsiders of society, because to me they are the most valuable, because they're able to see the flaws in society and the way things are done wrong. And that's how society changes. Society never changes from the people who toe the line, who
I could have talked for so much longer, trying to keep even to a reasonable amount of time so people listen rather than going, oh, I've got a week's worth of listening. But a question I ask all my guests at the end is, for those who are putting their work out there, either new to it or perhaps doing it a little while, but again, a bit disillusioned, what advice would you give them in terms of like self-doubt and things coming up around their work and putting it out into the wider world, being public, either on social media or in general? So just having that confidence to do that.
Yeah, that is a good one. What advice? Bloody hell.
or what you've done. It doesn't have to be.
I think enjoying the process more so than the outcome is one of the most important things, but also being mindful of how much external validation you need of your own work. I have a tattoo on my leg that says impress yourself, and that is what comes first and foremost. Like, if I haven't impressed myself, I say that like I've done some stuff which I'm like, it's okay. And then I'll post it. And then all of a sudden that's like one of people's favorite things. I'm like, I wasn't expecting that. I think you've got to be hungry for it, like really hungry for it. Like for me, when the algorithm changed on social media, it didn't impact me as much. It just made me post less. I was like, well, this isn't having as much impact anymore. So I don't have to worry too much, because my focus has always been on being an artist anyway.
Yeah.
And now university is just basically leading me how to do that in the real world, I suppose, like how to do proposals, how to do classes and tutorials and workshops and all these sorts of things. Yeah, be hungry for it, because I am obsessed, and I've been obsessed with making art since I can remember. You've basically got to live, eat and breathe it. If your work is themed around mental health, read into psychology, into anthropology, sociology. It goes for anything that your work might be themed around as well. Just become obsessed, like live, eat and breathe it. Don't watch TV, or you can, just not too much of it. Read, journal, make stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, I completely relate to the obsession and the living and breathing it. And yeah, I mean, there are people who come to it later and then they get obsessed later in life, which is quite interesting as well.
It's normally born through suffering anyway. Like, they might have a job that they've hated for years, and then like what they really wanted to do when they was younger was be a dancer, and then they'll get into it later on in life.
Yeah.
But some of us have suffered early on in life, and we realise that working in a cubicle isn't for us because it drives us literally insane.
Yeah, I've tried working the other jobs while doing the art, and yeah, ended in all the same ways. Nervous breakdown, like clinically nervous breakdown, and yeah, it's return to the art, thankfully. But even then, I go, back into 9 to 5 mentality. I've got to come back a bit, because the art should not hurt me like this.
Yeah, which is why the process-based thing. Because if you find, like, I think a lot of artists, especially at uni, they're so focused on the outcome that the process frustrates them. Whereas if you don't focus on the outcome and you focus on the process, it doesn't matter what the outcome is.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say with that is I never really know how the painting will end up. I have an idea in my head, but I'm just fixing each little bit that needs fixing, following the mistakes, as it were.
Yeah.
How do one? Yeah, I think Ralph and Clee put it like, minor course correction constantly. Yeah, which I love. Yeah.
Have you seen any of like the big splatter paintings that I do?
I've seen some of them, because I mean, I've seen a lot of your work, so it's trying to pinpoint one individual one sometimes, but so I've certainly seen a few.
Like, the reason I do splatter on the grums, and the reason I do splatter on a lot of things, is because that to me is a massive like outlet of like internal frustration. I'll just pour paint in my hands and just throw it at the canvas. And I do that constantly. Like, I'll have one canvas and I'll paint 20 different paintings on that canvas.
Yes.
Because it's the process. I'll destroy one outcome because I want to enjoy the process again. So it'll just have layers and layers and layers.
That's like my background, and then I might paint something that's more representational on top.
Yeah, I don't even know what my splatter ones are. It's just throwing paint at a canvas, and it ends up looking like a cosmic cataclysm.
So then you go with whatever you can see within the ink blocks.
No, I've got to a point now where it's just like some of them will just be splatter.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah,
I've got one here that I'm just looking at.
I mean, I have a love affair with the splatter of paint anyway, so I can totally get it.
Sick.
Right. So yeah, it's been great. Just for those who have been listening, I just want to, where can people find you? Where's the best place? Is that on the website, or?
So I've got my website is grumreapur.com, which is GRUMREAPUR.
I'll flash it across the screen so people can read it as well.
Or Rumble Art. It's the same website. It's just 2 URLs. Rumble Art, which is RUMBLART, and both go there. If you type in Grum Reapur on Google, everything will come up as me.
Yeah,
that was my plan when I started it.
So yeah, for those who have been listening, I always say just keep creating, keep scribbling, enjoy the process. I haven't said that in the other ones, but that's basically what I'm getting at, is enjoy the process with the scribbling and the picking up a camera or trying sculpting for the first time, whatever it is, just enjoy the process. And if you're enjoying it, then you're probably going in the right direction. So,
and don't be afraid to go a little bit mad.
Yes, we're all a bit mad here in the artist world, creative world.
It's the best way.
So yeah, thanks for everyone who's been enjoying the episodes. Still blows me away how well this channel is doing, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. So I've been Extempore Art, aka Chris, and it's been the wonderful Brad Rumble, aka Grum Reapur.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It's been bloody wonderful.
Great to finally connect.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Bye from me and bye from Brad.
All right.
Everyone. And fade out.